honestly, you're going to save money, believe it or not. Most people think, oh, well, that's going to be more expensive at the farmer's market. It's actually going to be cost less because if you think of the rising cost of food coming from stores and the shipping costs and all that stuff, you're going to pay more at the grocery store, believe it or not. Welcome back to another episode of the Brave Today podcast. This show will encourage, challenge, maybe even provoke you to step outside of your comfort zone, take more action to better improve yourself and your health. I'm your host, Mark Avens, and in this crazy upside down world that keeps pushing a narrative for people to become softer, weaker, sicker, unhealthier, and more dependent than ever. The goal and intent of my show is to help you navigate through it so you can become not only braver today than you were yesterday. Now, we do a bunch of different types of shows. Today is actually the flavor of the day, and we are going to talk and have a conversation about farmers markets. I'm going to give you a quick start guide to shopping at a farmer's market. It's something that relatively new for me, although over the years probably have stopped at them in the past, but we're going to be discussing that. So I hope you enjoyed today's show. All right, so getting started in shopping at a farmer's market, I'd love to hear if you've shopped at a farmer's market before. I'd love to hear your experience, maybe even have some questions. That could be a great Q&A question for one of our upcoming Q&As. We do different types of shows. One of them is a Q&A, and the best way to do that is to drop your questions in the comments, or you can send them over to info@avensfitness.com. So today I really want to discuss shopping at farmers markets, and I want to give you a quick guide, if you will, to shopping at farmers markets. In my personal experience and from other people over the course of years, to be honest with you, I can attest that I haven't been one that adamantly going to farmers markets and really looking for the highest quality of. Now we're talking about food and nutrition. So of course they have baked goods and lots of other things. You can get candles at farmers markets and things like that, but we're talking about food. So I want to just kind of narrow our conversation today for tips of shopping at farmers markets. Some of the tips will apply to the other things that you buy at them, but we're going to talk about food. And when we recently moved. If you didn't know the backstory, my wife and I lived in Florida, in northern Florida, Jacksonville, at the beaches area for 20 years, raising our kids. And over the course of that time, we always looked for healthier ways to bring healthy fruits and vegetables and produce and stuff to our table. And we've had everything under the sun, from going to farmers markets to looking to, going to actual farms, to having delivery produce that were like organic, local delivery produce right to our doorstep. And then, of course, shopping on weekends and when we're finding the farmers markets. I would have to say up until probably the last 5 to 8 years, maybe, they've been kind of few and far between, if you will. Now I find I honestly feel they're going to be a big part in the service industry for people who, like myself and my family, who are looking for better alternatives to grocery stores, quite simply because I honestly, a personal opinion, and maybe you feel this with me, I don't trust what's in the grocery stores. I even have a hard time trusting the things that say that they're organic or that there's no pesticides and stuff. And simply because I don't think the regulations really are truthful in that respect. And I believe they're all bought and paid for, but I'm not going to get into that conversation today. It just makes me want to be a better consumer, a healthier consumer, a more knowledgeable consumer. And I would imagine if you're watching this right now, you do as well. So, you go to the grocery store. What do we typically see? Before we get into the tips for shopping, I have about 10 tips I want to give to you. We'll see if we get through them all and kind of give you a guide to shopping at a farmer's market. But let's kind of backstep just a little bit. What's the purpose? Why would you want to go shop at a farmer's markets? Well, just like I had alluded to, is that grocery stores, you see stuff that looks pretty. You see all the pretty produce, and you see all the little misters on there spraying their water and keeping that really shiny, and only perfect looking vegetables. That's actually just so far from what, if you were to go to any farm. And I have firsthand experience. I grew up on a farm. I was a fifth generation. My grandfather was a potato farmer, and I had the privilege, really, I didn't think it at the time because it was a lot of hard work. But growing up in probably the majority of my youth, we lived in a house. My parents lived in a house that wasn't on the farm. And then we moved into the farm when I was in like elementary, middle school. So I had really a great upbringing, and we did have access to produce, and we had animals, farm animals. We had pigs and chickens, cows, all that good stuff. And we had really good food. And I honestly feel that's a big part of why my immune system is pretty strong. My parents made it a point to give us, what was on the farm. So nowadays, going to a grocery store, looking at that, I have honestly like jaded. You almost get just immune to thinking, oh, this is how bananas all look. This is how apples all look. They're perfectly shaped. They all look the same, kind of like almost cloned, if you will, right? I'm not here to go into the deep dive. That maybe is another conversation, but it just, as a consumer, and more I read and more I learn about where the produce comes from overseas, how it's shipped over and it's not even finished, like being finished growing. And they actually, pluck a lot of this produce. You see like avocados that are so green and they're not picked before they're ripe. And then when you have a chance to actually have real produce that's like harvest, and then they actually are there and right away you can eat them and fresh. And I've had that experience. That's something that I think is lost. It's gotten lost. I do feel there's a lot of people that are starting to wake up to believing that there are healthier, better options than what's only available at the grocery stores. And it's kind of funny is now even some grocery stores are calling themselves farmers markets, and they're not. It's kind of hysterical. I think there's few that use their taglines as, farm fresh. This is from farmers. And they're not saying local, they're from farmers like overseas, which of course, a lot of the produce you get and fruits and vegetables and things are from farms, just not local. So I want to just want you to understand it probably would pay if you really want to know what's going in your body to really pay attention to where your food is coming from. And we're going to just kind of dial in on the fruits and vegetables and maybe like the dairy and meat products and stuff we'll talk about a little bit. So that's such great experience. So let's say, okay, now that you're decided, Mark's probably right. I want to look into farmers markets. What are some tips? Well, I'm going to give you that guide right now. So let's jump right in. So your farmers market, the easiest way to look it up, just Google search. You can do that. Just get on your phone, get on there and take a look at local farmers markets. And I'm going to give you actually a little hack, because I actually did that when I was in Jacksonville, and there was a so-called farmers market that was local, and it was open every day. And I went to it. It was the saddest thing I've ever seen in my life. And it was really pathetic. A lot of the stuff, it wasn't farmers. It was a farmer's market. They could call it a market, produce market or whatever, but a lot of the stuff wasn't even local. A lot of the stuff was just terrible. Like, it was dirty. It was disgusting. It really was pathetic. And that really turned me off, or really got me kind of discouraged, if you will, thinking that, gosh, is this what farmers markets are like? Fortunately, I've been to enough of them to know that that's not the case. Just sometimes those daily ones, they're going to try to take advantage of consumers, maybe up the prices, thinking you're getting farm produce. You really, unfortunately, people are out there not for your best interest, but for theirs and whatever's going to fill their pockets. But let's get back to getting and finding a real farmer's market. The best thing is to, just like I shared with you, just go. You'll know pretty quickly. When we moved here, we decided, hey, we like want to check out the local scene, and they had a local farmers market. So it was one on Saturday, and it was in like usually they'll like get started and they'll pop up into like an empty parking lot, maybe, or maybe at a park or something like that, depending on where you live. Ours was in kind of a shopping plaza, but a lot of the stores are closed on Sundays. They had a farmer's market on Sundays. It was really great. And they're all local people. And we walked around. It's not huge, but it was busy. You knew it was good. And you saw there's everything from people selling produce to selling baked goods to selling dog treats. You kind of know the general theme of farmers markets. And we really just kind of looked around, and the best way to learn if it's legit is just go and talk to the people. So we did. One of my favorites, a couple of them, where we went. One of them was there was a tractor trailer truck kind of parked beside, and then there was a bunch of tents up, and then there was just produce, and it was a farm stand for produce, not fruit, just vegetables, just a vegetable stand. And it was great because they had bags that you could take, or you could bring your own bag. And we're going to get into the hacks, and I say hacks, they're more tips for going if you're just thinking about going to a farmer's market. But this one was great because we didn't go with a bag like in here in Colorado, they charge you for grocery bags. So we just bring our own, and most people do. It's just kind of the thing now to kind of save on the paper and the plastic usage, et cetera, et cetera. So, but this one we went and you fill a bag. They have bags that you fill. It's like $15 to fill a bag. And it was, a good size bag to get a lot of produce. You could literally stuff it as much as you want. That was kind of their thing. And it was great. And the owner was there, one of the owners or managers, what have you. And he was like, "Hey, we thank you for your business. We really appreciate it. Fill up your bag." And he was really just a good salesman and just a good kind. Talk to him, and it was great. And they even have a farm you can go to, and you can go to visit the farm as well. And that was pretty cool. We didn't visit that farm, but then we looked at some other places. And there was one that was interesting. It was a bison ranch, a bison farm, and I had not had bison really in a long time. I think I tried to cook it one time myself. I had no idea what I was doing. And I think at that time, I believe, I don't remember, maybe I was in college or something like that. But I don't really have, except for maybe a bison burger one time out at a restaurant that offered that, I might have had it. But I was really interested because I know it's leaner and just, good, higher quality. So I got talking. There was this guy that was kind of selling. They were giving out samples like they do in a lot of these places to get you to sample and taste. And it was really good. So we got talking, and the owners were there as well. It's really nice. And we went home, and I'll tell you what, it was a game changer for us. So we had fresh vegetables, fresh produce. We had some other things that we bought there, like fresh salsa, homemade tortillas that were really, really good. We did buy I think something that was baked that was probably some sweet kind of, but it was homemade. Like they made it from scratch, which was really, really great, and local ingredients too. So back to the bison. And then we started to, now my wife doesn't eat red meat or bison or beef or any of that stuff. But for me and my kids, I really enjoyed it and we really liked it. And I was looking at the cost. And then when I went to the grocery store, I was comparing. And I was like, wow, it's like not even more expensive. It's actually, depending on what you buy and how much of it, it actually could be even more cost effective, which just to me, it was a game changer. In that moment, I said, you know what? It tastes better. I like that I'm supporting local, blah, blah, blah. We're going to get into those tips. And I was like, this just makes sense to me and to my family, knowing where the food comes from as well. So we decided to start getting delivered from the Bison Ranch, Memphis Bison Ranch. And a shout out to Greg and Tammy Knott, who have this bison ranch. They even invited us out to the ranch. Like, how cool is that to see like where your meat's coming from? Grass fed and grass finished, no hormones, no nothing, no junk. Like, I don't trust the stuff in the stores, and to have to pay the same amount, I might as well go straight to the source, right? You're kind of cutting out the middleman, if you will. And I don't think that big corporations and companies, they want you to do that. But I think it's something that's going to be a big value for people moving forward in the upcoming months and years ahead. So we did that. And then there was also, I remember at the time, there was peaches there was a certain type of peach that was growing. And I remember getting those, and those weren't cheap, but they were the best tasting peaches that I've ever tasted my entire life. And I'm not even a huge peach person, but we just couldn't help. There was a huge line, people waiting for them. They come in only one time a year, and they were amazing. So I even paid a little bit more for that. So let's get into, now that I have that experience, it kind of gave me the pathway to say, you know what, if it's helping me, I wanted to share that with our clients and students in our program, help them save on cost, help them get a better quality food source, fruits, vegetables, meats, dairy, whatever. And so I started to do a little bit more investigating. Come to find out here, there's also a dairy farm that delivers. Now we haven't done that. Also looked at some other meat companies as well. And the produce, we hadn't really done much, I'll be honest, over the winter, but I know once they get started, the farmers markets get started, we'll be getting our produce from there for sure. And I was looking at the costs. And I say, honestly, you're going to save money, believe it or not. Most people think, oh, well, that's going to be more expensive at the farmer's market. It's actually going to be cost less, because if you think of the rising cost of food coming from stores and the shipping costs and all that stuff, you're going to pay more at the grocery store, believe it or not. Anyway, so let's get into the tips. Now that I kind of gave you the background, number one, let's go first tip, bring cash. That's really the best. Bringing cash is probably the best and safest bet that you can do, that you have in there. You can use credit cards, but when you go, if you ever owned a business before, any credit card transaction is going to be a fee. So when you pay in cash, one of the things is you'll be able to you'll get your produce, you'll pay the money, and you know that the farmers will be able to also not have to pay those fees, which I think is a value and really helping for some of those smaller farmers, smaller businesses as well, just kind of eliminating that charge, if you will. So bringing cash is helpful, and sometimes when you're paying cash too, they might even give you deals if you're depending on when you're coming to the farmers markets and stuff. So cash could be really helpful. Use the cash, and I think we need to use cash more and more. Also, as far as let's go to number two, know the season. So know the season. Now, we just moved to Colorado within the last 6 months. We're just learning about these seasons that are here. And as far as just understanding the produce that comes in the different seasons, like I mentioned, the peaches that were there in the late summer when we were here, actually, fall. I think it was actually more of the fall season. Yeah, because I had more of the seasonal food and it was great. But also thinking in lines with your produce is in lines with stuff that's seasonal. And it's actually something that we've really lost that art as far as just in consumers, is because we have access to all the foods all the time, right? Rather than seasonal foods. I think if you actually get back into the basics of eating seasonal foods, you're probably going to have a better, really a better experience all the way around, and not having, one of the things I love about is when you're buying the seasonal produce and seasonal food is that you're limited on choices. And that's, I think, one of the things that I don't like personally about grocery store shopping is there's just too many choices. Right. You go when you want to get some apples, right? And there's like 40 different kinds of apples. There's 20 different kinds of this apple and that apple. You go to lettuce, there's like 20 different kinds of lettuce. You go to a farmer's market, probably is going to be what's growing. There might be red leaf and maybe a butter lettuce or romaine or something like that, right? But I like that. It's kind of like going to a restaurant and it's like a booklet. You go to Cheesecake Factory and it's about this thick. It looks like a Bible and there's about 4,000 choices. This is all processed stuff, right? Versus maybe going to maybe a little bit more exclusive restaurant, or maybe a smaller mom and pop place where they have just a few things on the menu. You know, they do them well, and chances are they're probably more fresher and probably more local with that. But know the season that you're going to. It's going to be really helpful. That's number two. Number three, I already mentioned it, so I'm kind of just going over these things. I would definitely talk to the stand owners. There, you get to know their story. They're actually quite interesting. They probably even share with you a little bit about stuff that maybe you've never tried before, which could be fun. You know, like bison is something, but I've never had summer sausage, and like, you got to try this. And also like a stew meat, and hadn't made a stew in a while, and they told me what to do. It was really great. You're going to the source, the people that actually they live, eat, and breathe what they're selling, right? And I think that's something that's really great. You can ask questions where they came from, like, do you use pesticides? Like, what do you have coming up in the next season? All that. Can I go check out your farm? Those types of things. So, and develop relationships. I think, farmers today and people that are trying to make it as farmers really they're few and far between as well, in a sense that they're pushing them out. And I really believe in farmers. I believe that they're a vital resource for human consumption of food. And I think they're really underrated. And I think that actually the big corporations are making them underrated, but I really would have to bank my money on the value of farmers, and we need to keep them around. So talk to the stand owners. They're going to be grateful. They're going to share with you all kinds of great stuff, maybe some recipes, maybe the deals that are coming up. And they might even invite you to their farm, like the Bison Farmers and Ranch they invited us to go to. And it was really an awesome experience. It was only like 30 minutes away. So next one is, and knowing this in seasonals, plan your meals. So plan your meals around what you're going to have access to. What I love is, you go to a farmer's market and you're not going to see all the frozen pizzas and all the ice creams, or maybe they make homemade ice cream at one of them, who knows? But I mean, there's stuff when you go to the grocery store, you end up buying because you don't know what else to do, and you're lost and confused because there's so many options and choices. You go down the cereal aisle, right? There's no cereal aisle at the farmer's market. But what I love is that you can easier plan your meals when there's less to think about. So hey, there's this vegetables and that, and they have this, and there's this meat, and we know we can get eggs from here, and we can do this. And then you can make your meals around that, which now I'm not saying we only shop at farmers markets. In fact, we didn't through the winter, but we really have been more conscientious of what we buy at the grocery store when it comes to fruits and vegetables and things that we can get from farmers markets. So that would be really, really important. Plan your meals out. That way, you know exactly how much, again, when you're getting fresher produce and stuff, probably unless you know how to preserve it, whether you freeze it or you can it or you dry it, whatever it is, you're going to, if you don't use it or don't know how to use it, it's going to go bad quicker versus, and they're like, oh, well, I want to buy the stuff from the store. Really? Do you want something that has a long shelf life? You wonder what they sprayed on that vegetable to make it have as long a shelf life as it does. Keep that in mind, right? Convenience is not always convenient when it comes to your health. Sometimes I find like the most inconvenient things that you can do to pursue good health are really the best things to make yourself better. And braver and healthier for sure. So number five, the next thing that I would recommend, and you might even be out of town, maybe you're in a friends, maybe you're in a different state and you want to go on the weekend, or maybe you have family that's taking you. I would take a lap, like just go for a walk around the farmers markets. One of the things we did, I remember, is we bought something. I think it was maybe tomatoes or something from one, and then we went to another. There was another stand in the same farmers market. There was just another produce stand, and man, their tomatoes looked way better and they were cheaper. And we were kind of bummed. We're like, oh, we'll know that for next time when we go. And that's what we did. So what I'd recommend is you take a lap around, kind of scan the produce, scan the options, scan the prices, talk to the owners, because if the farmers market's there on a regular basis, once a week or on the weekends, Saturday, Sunday, what have you, maybe even they have a midweek one. You can get to know them, and I want to do business with somebody who's going to be friendly as well. Like they're appreciative of your business. They tell you about it. Like there's a relationship, right? And I think that's something that maybe has also been neglected over the years with all the shutdowns and lockdowns and all that stuff. So definitely make it a point. Take a lap, go around. Like I said, talk to people, look at the produce that's available, look at what's maybe good, look at how they present it as well. And then also be a good consumer to look to make sure that it is a farm stand, that it is legit, because you might find some that are just, there to make money off you, and they may not be legit farm stands. And most of the ones that are put on by the county, like we looked it up, and this one's put on by Laramie County, and that's something that is straightforward, and they know, and it's been going on. I actually was looking it up, and actually the one here where we live has been around since I think the farmers market that we go to here in Fort Collins is it's been going on co-ops since 1984, which is pretty cool. So obviously people are looking, consumers are wanting more fresher produce, and they want to support the local farmers, which I think is pretty awesome in that respect. So let's go on to the next tip. So the next tip is, and this is something that's really helpful, especially if they run out of stuff early, is to arrive early or late. Like you could go during the time, but arriving early, actually, there's lots of benefits. It guarantees that the market is probably less crowded. Also, you get a better chance of the best quality produce. I know one time we went back in Jacksonville, there's one local near us in a park, and we really wanted to get some organic farm eggs, and we just we've had a better experience with those versus the one in the grocery store, and they're actually cheaper. And I remember going, and we were bummed because they had already sold out, and it was only like an hour into the farmers market, so people know to go early because they run out of eggs at this one particular farm stand. So that was really good. And then there's things like the peaches. I remember some of them will sell out before, like they may sell out before you get there. So if you go, 2 hours into a 3 hour, maybe the farmer's market is from 10 until 2 is 4 hours, and you go at 1:30, you might not get that. However, the good news arriving late. So you got to think, if you arrive early, you get access to all the best stuff, and usually nothing will run out. If you arrive late, if there's a supply demand thing there. If you arrive late, then there might be things that they're trying to get rid of, and you might be able to get a deal if they're trying to really just sell it, right? And I would imagine a lot of them don't want to come home with more stuff, not more stuff, but they don't want to come back home with things that they tried to sell. They'd rather probably sell it to you. I know if I was there, I'd try to get rid of some of the stuff and try to sell it. And I would make a deal. Hey, two bags of produce for $15 instead of one, what have you. Now, the other thing too is something that I do know. Now, if you're listening and you're kind of tight on your budget, or maybe you're on benefits and you're getting I think they're called EBT and SNAP accounts. I know also some farmers markets accept that, so that it's actually worthwhile. So just don't think because maybe you're in a tight spot financially that you can't actually benefit from going to farmers market. The hard thing is a lot of those benefits and those programs, EBT, SNAP programs, you can get a lot of junk from there as well, unfortunately. So again, I'm going to encourage you to check those out if you want better for you and for your family. Now, another thing, and it's kind of like, and I just talked about it as far as bargaining. I would say you don't want to bargain with. I almost see it's kind of like a faux pas, like just don't do it, in my opinion. I would say if you happen to get there late and you don't get the stuff you want and they're ready to get rid of it and they're give you a deal, cool. But I wouldn't go there and like try to negotiate prices. I really don't think that that's probably honestly benefit to you or for the farmer or whoever the stand, regardless of what it is, not even just fruits and vegetables and produce and your ranchers and things like that, but anything is, you can go get a bargain somewhere else. Don't from the local farmers. I think they have a hard enough time as well, just making it. So I would say you almost be willing to even pay more, in my opinion. That's just my personal opinion. I actually love to hear what you think. Do you think you should be bargaining with farmers markets and farmers? Do you think that's something that you should do? Or do you think it'd be more valuable to actually pay them the full price of whatever it is they're selling at the price that they're selling for? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Maybe I can be convinced otherwise, but I feel if I own a farm, I wouldn't want somebody trying to haggle me on prices. That's just my personal opinion. So I say don't bargain. You'd rather have good quality and good relationship with somebody and willing to pay the price than to actually bargain with them. If they're willing to give you a percentage off or something, or you refer somebody to them to come to market next time, totally cool. Maybe they give you something extra in your bag or something like that. Totally cool. But I wouldn't ask for that. And then, obviously what I talked about as far as our focus being on fruits and vegetables, on produce, getting more local farm fresh produce as well. There's other things there. Like I had mentioned, my wife actually was at a farmer's market, a winter one. We hadn't gone. We had kind of a pretty full winter and a lot of things going on in our lives. Just as you probably just didn't get out to it, but she did get out the last weekend. I think it was last Saturday. And she came home with the absolute best tasting salsa I've ever had in my life. It was so good. Two different kinds. One was like a green chili salsa, and they're big into the green chilies here. And then one was like a red salsa, and it was delicious. And it came with tortilla chips that they were homemade from homemade tortillas, which was awesome. So kind of maybe not as healthy with the chips, but at least they were made and they're not super processed. They literally homemade the tortillas and turned them into chips. So how awesome is that? I'd much rather have that than actually go buy a bag of tortilla chips that you have no idea what they're putting in it. In your body. Just go look at the back of packaging on things and you ask yourself if you think that stuff really should be going in your body, right? Enough said on there. So next, this is number 10. I believe this is the 10th tip. And that is try new things. We mentioned trying bison. I tried some summer sausage. We tried green chilies. I actually bought green chilies. I bought a bag of them. I don't know if I'd use them. I probably could figure out ways to use them more. But I remember chopping some up and putting them in a burrito we made or like tacos or something. That was good. But I was definitely willing to try some different things. And then like peaches isn't something that I normally get and would go and say, oh, I'm really craving peaches. But they were local peaches and everybody was online. And I just kind of was like sheep and followed in line and I got some and they were really, really good. So I would say, be willing to try new things. Maybe there's a seasonal in the spring that comes and that's now. There's a spring vegetable that maybe you hadn't had, a spring squash or something like that maybe you just never thought to buy at the grocery store because you didn't know how to cook it. Well, ask them, what would you recommend? How do you cook these? Saute them up with a little garlic and salt and pepper will be good to go. Maybe, like kale. One of the things I know with kale, I'm not a big kale fan, but I remember my wife bought some from a farm stand one time, and we're like, what are you going to do with this big pile of kale? And she made kale chips, and they were amazing. They were crispy, crunchy, healthy, sea salt, a little olive oil baked in the oven, and they were really, really great. And we knew what we were getting instead of a big bag of junky chips, right? No Doritos. We had some kale chips, and they were actually really good. It was trying new things. I never had it before. I haven't had it in a while, but it was something that you got to be at least a little bit adventurous, in the sense that if you're looking to venture into better health, right? If you're trying to improve yourself and your health, it's probably going to be important that you try some new things out, because you never know. Your taste buds may be changing over time. Mine have definitely changed over time. I used to not be a tomato. You couldn't put a tomato 10 feet from me without me freaking out. I just did not like tomatoes. And I find myself sometimes eating salsa, but I also find myself eating tomato on sandwiches. So, which is kind of crazy, because that's something that just didn't happen before. Just never liked the taste of it. But now, again, my taste buds are changing. Avocados, never a fan. Now I love avocados. So willing to try new things. You never know. Aside from that, I hope that helps. And I'd love to know if there's anything that you suggest in farmers markets, things that you think would be helpful for people. And I'll be happy to answer those questions. I think this would be a great one for a Q&A to come up. I'd love to hear your experiences, maybe even the costs. I was blown away. One of the things that I saw in cost, I saw eggs in one store, $12 a dozen, $1 an egg. And I remember, and I just ordered some delivered to my home from a local ranch. There's meat, not a bison ranch. But I got some ground beef and some steaks, and they also had farm fresh eggs, and they were the most amazing tasting eggs. They were huge. They were big eggs, and they were like, I think they were like $6.50 for the dozen, which was almost like 50%, 40 something percent less than what I saw some eggs at the grocery store the other day at. So if that's enough, I get two dozen eggs for the price of one. Right? Like that's a no-brainer deal. And you're getting farmer, and you're supporting farmers, and you're getting a better quality product. So anyway, with that said, I hope today's episode helped. And if you found this useful to you, share the show, hit the like, subscribe to us, drop your comments. Really, really appreciate it. And I hope you have an amazing, blessed day. Be braver today than you were yesterday. Take care. God bless.